Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I wanted to end up my show with Councillor Diane Sachs talking about a couple of issues. I thought that it was really interesting having her on and really expressing for us, I think, extremely well, some of the attitudes and opinions of what you would probably describe as the progressive side of City Council. And I think that it's interesting in our environment politically today in Ontario and Canada, where we've probably seen a shift to the right, where even the Liberal Party, both provincially as well as federally, has probably moved more to the right than it has been in the past. We've gotten rid of the carbon tax, at least the consumer carbon tax. So we seem to have defocused some of the issues in regards to climate change. Certainly that's the flavor in the United States as well. To have someone so forcefully talk about climate change, how critically important it is to our future, to our environment, to our city, and how China, India, etc., are making real moves in regards to solar, getting out of coal, cleaning their air, etc., I think is really helpful for us to listen to. She knows what she's talking about. She's been an environmental lawyer. She's been the last environmental commissioner for the province of Ontario. She ran for the Green Party, so she clearly is very knowledgeable. She's got a PhD in environmental law, so she's very knowledgeable about what she talks, and obviously very passionate about her issues. And so I think it's interesting to hear what she's got to say. I do think that the climate change is sort of, other than the threat of Trump and tariffs and sovereignty and stuff like that, it's probably the existential crisis of our generation. And we need to address it. We need to do something about it. I think that the statistics we've heard about how many smog days Ontario and Toronto used to have that have been gone from our memories almost, because we've converted coal plants to nuclear. And maybe we've forgotten how critically important that's been, and how our investment in nuclear power has really given us a healthier environment and healthier lives. And that's just one example of pollution and climate change. How we had acid rain when I was a teenager, and Brian Mulroney as Prime Minister, and some of the agreements between Canada and the United States solved that. How we were worried about the hole in the ozone layer, and we took action, and we seem to have solved that problem. So we can take action collectively as a global community, even when not everyone in the globe participates, and there are some naysayers and deniers, and have a positive impact. I'm not sure I agree with her completely in regard to sort of the end of a carbon-based economy. I do think that hydrocarbons are going to be a lot more important to Canada and the world longer than some people think. And so I'm a firm supporter of development of our oil and gas resources, and putting in another pipeline to the West Coast, and liquefying natural gas and shipping it to Asia if they want it. But I have to be mindful of her comments in regard to how plentiful the sun is, and how solar panels have decreased dramatically in cost. And when you think about it, hydrocarbons really are solar power. It's just solar power from 1,000 years ago that got captured in the ground and converted into hydrocarbons. It's still sun and the energy from the sun. So if we can find a way of converting current sun energy into power, all the better. I also think that nuclear energy is a real solution, and I'm convinced that people's concerns about nuclear waste really harmed us from dramatically increasing nuclear energy, the CANDU reactor, the Atomic Energy Corporation of Canada, and some real investments and skills that Canada had in nuclear power. The other issue that she talked about quite a bit was housing. And I disagree with her on development fees. I do think that development fees are passed on to the consumer, and so therefore they make housing less affordable for young people, for renters that want to become homeowners, for immigrants that come to our country, etc. But her issue in regards to us needing something to fund infrastructure, and that municipalities get such a small amount of tax dollars, is right. And so if we are going to reduce or eliminate development fees, which I think is the right thing to do, we need to replace that money from somewhere else, and that's got to come from the provincial and federal government. I do think that the way that the United States funds infrastructure through municipal tax bonds, where something is is paid for over the long term, funded up front by way of a bond, and effectively gets the benefit of a tax relief. And so therefore the general tax revenue is paying a certain amount of it because the interest is tax deductible. The capital comes from the private sector, so it gets a good return with a good security. And the money is paid for back by often the users and or the property tax owner, but not all at once over time. And I think the problem with development fees is they're paid for all at once by the new home purchaser. So I think it's a regressive taxation. I think it's wrong. I think it should be changed. But we do have to pay for the infrastructure. And so Diane Sachs is quite right that we need some other source of the funding for that infrastructure. I do think that social housing is critical. I got to tell you, as I mentioned in the interview with Councillor Sachs, I was on East Hastings in Vancouver this past week, and there are thousands of people on the street. I've never seen anything more dismal in my life, other than maybe touring Auschwitz or something like that. And these people are dead, and so it's a terrible comparison, maybe. But the thousands of people that were, and I'm not kidding you, it was over 1,000 for sure that were lining the streets of East Hastings, and what both political people I spoke with and taxi drivers I spoke with said that I was just seeing what was on East Hastings. I wasn't seeing what was in the streets and blocks and buildings and behind that. I don't want Toronto to become that, and I want to solve Vancouver's problem. And I do think that housing, social housing, plentiful housing at affordable prices is the number one solution. I think there also has got to be mental health issues, resources. Drug addiction is a real problem. I can't believe what I saw, and we need to address the homelessness issue in our country. She also talked about parks, and when I think about University of Rosedale, Queen's Park North is a gorgeous park. Some of the parks around U of T are gorgeous, but the balance of her community probably doesn't have a lot of parks. And when she says that it's the least park intensive ward in the city, I'm sort of not surprised by it. And so when you think about that increased density with all those tall buildings, it's only going to get worse on a per capita basis in her ward. And so therefore we need to have parks. And I think too often the cities are willing to take these payments in lieu rather than actually get dedicated parks. And we need to make sure that when we are developing our cities, we keep space for green space. And as she said, in COVID, we found that out more than anything else. I spoke with my doctor recently who said the most important thing you can do is go for a walk every day. I think we need places where we can get fresh air, we can see nature, and we can go for a walk. And so I completely agree with her argument in regards to parks. And I think parks are sort of the lungs of our city. If culture maybe is the heart of our city, where we get, and the main streets where we get our inspiration and our love and our community, I think that the lungs come from our parks and our ravines. And so we need to make sure that we save them, we fund them, we ensure that there's space for them, etc. So I want to thank Diane Sachs for coming on, and I want to challenge all of us to listen to the people on the right, to listen to the people on the left, and to listen to the people in the middle, because you know what? Everyone's got some good ideas that need to be listened to. Anyway, that's my thought for the night. I appreciate you joining me. I'm Brian Crombie for the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. If you miss my show, you can always get my my videos on social media or on my YouTube channel. You can get my podcasts on several different podcast servers. I have some really interesting people on my show, and I do long form interviews for 47, 50 minutes. It's an opportunity to really get to know people, and for me, it's an opportunity to listen to them and then feedback to you some of my views. And so I appreciate the opportunity, and please, check me out if you ever want to, respond. Send me a message. I want to be able to interview the people that you want to hear from and make the comments that you want to hear. Thanks. Good night, everybody.